Hey, thanks for checking out Nuts and Bolts with Tone, and welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to talk about suspension and steering. We're going to talk about the tools that I used to use on a regular basis to do steering and suspension work, and a couple tools that I got that make everything a lot easier. So if you're doing steering and suspension, you're going to need an air hammer, right? So when I first started, it was like, okay, we need an air hammer, okay, and a pickle fork. You got the pickle fork and the air hammer. All right, so this is what most people use to take apart ball joints, tie rod ends, pitman arms, things like that. Oh, not pitman arms, but you know, steering components, all the different steering components. All right, so I can't tell you the last time that I used this. Actually, I tried to use it and it got stuck and it didn't work one time like 6 months ago. But I haven't used it. I don't use it on a regular basis. What I use instead of this combination is a big hammer. So I'll use a big hammer as my big Harbor Freight ball peen hammer. And if that doesn't work, I'll break out the sledgehammer. All right? So all you're gonna do is you're gonna hit the component. So you're gonna have your knuckle and your tie rod's gonna go down through, right? All you're gonna do is hit the knuckle. You're gonna hit it all around. The part that is securing the ball joint or the tie rod, you're gonna hit it and you're gonna be jarring it. Usually in 3 or 4 really good hits, you can pop it loose. Sometimes one hit and I can knock a tie rod loose. So then that means that you don't need this. You don't need the pickle fork. Besides, if you use a pickle fork, and let's say you're disconnecting a tie rod end to take a strut out or an axle or whatever, you're gonna break the boot and you're gonna have to replace it or it's gonna be leaking. So don't use the pickle fork. Throw this thing away. We don't throw it away, but don't use it. All right. So, now, a couple other tools that you're gonna, you know, the pitman arm puller, all right? You're gonna need this guy here, but a little tip with the pitman arm is when you put your tool on there, hit it with a hammer. Hit it with a hammer, run the tool up, get it tight and snug, and then bang it from both sides with a hammer or one side, whatever. Run the tool, hit it with a hammer. Usually after 2 or 3 times, you can take it off. All right, so here's an example of the power of a hammer. On an F5 450, an F450 Ford Power Stroke, they have bad gearboxes and they leak all the time. And I've replaced like 10 or 11 of them. I've never once used a pitman arm remover to take the pitman arm off of the gearbox. I take the gearbox off, I put it on the floor, and I get my sledgehammer, and I get some gloves, and I hit on it, and I break it loose. And I don't need to use a pitman arm puller to get that one off. But that's just showing you the power of a hammer. I mean, of course you have to hit it hard. That's the power of the hammer. Now, a few other components that are good to have are, and I need to get a couple more, is not a chisel, but a punch for your air hammer. All right, this is good to get in certain places to jar things loose. This right here works really well when you have a ball joint that is held up and the knuckle pinches it and it has a bolt that goes through. You can turn it and you can get the chisel to hammer in between and open it up and then pop your ball joint out. Another tool that you want to get is you want to get something like this. This works really, really well for breaking things loose, knocking rust loose, things like that. Another thing this works really well, the other thing that the center punch works really good for is axles. You're going right down the center of the axle, that way you're not messing up the threads. If you use this, you're gonna mushroom the outside edge and you're gonna damage the threads. A lot of times you can put the nut on there and you can hit it, but I've still damaged axles even with the nut on there. So that's some of those tools. Now here's something that I picked up a long time ago, and I don't know where I got this, but it is a piece of metal, and this thing is 15 inches long and 1.25 inches thick, and it is solid steel. Now this works really, really well if you put this on a component that you can't reach, a pitman arm, a drag link, anything like that, a steering component, and you can hit it and it's like a hammer extension. So this is a really good thing to get, a big piece of thick steel. Now, you're gonna wanna make sure that you have a good air hammer. Now this is my Matco air hammer. I've had this for 16 years and this works great. The only thing I've ever had to replace was the end. This end screws off, I had to replace that one time. Now, what I used to use on a regular basis were my regular Matco pry bars, which I actually need to get some new ones because the handle's all damaged. So you're gonna use, this one is a 17-inch pry bar. It's like a little less than 3/8 thick. Don't use that one a lot. Use this one a little bit more. Same Matco set, 16 years. First pry bar set I ever bought. And this one's 25 inches long. Use this one quite often. And then here is my biggest pry bar that I have. Okay, curved pry bar. This is what I use most of the time. 3 feet long, 36 inches. All right, so 36 inches. And it's just shy of 5/8 thick. Now, recently I acquired 2 tools that I use all the time now, and they work fantastic. And I'm gonna show you these 2 tools, and you're gonna wanna get these tools. All right, so tool number 1 is the OTC S-hook for control arms, all right? You're gonna hook this thing on the control arm like this, and you're gonna put your pry bar, I'll use a small one just for all intensive purposes, and you're gonna put your pry bar through here like this, and look at this, and then you're gonna be able to just pry the control arm down without having to worry about finding a hole to get into, about trying to pry on a bolt and it's slipping off and popping back up. That's a big pain, and that's caused me a lot of grief. Now, the next tool that you're gonna wanna get is a big pry bar. And now, let me tell you why. So I've been doing this for a long time, and that 36-inch pry bar, I've used it all the time, but it's made things quite difficult, and sometimes I've had to borrow somebody's pry bar. It wasn't long enough, I couldn't get enough leverage. And so I just recently got this Mayhew Tools Dominator. All right, now, this guy right here, this is 58 inches long. And this handle is great because it's you can get, my hands aren't small, I can get my whole hand around it, which is good because you don't want to be holding on to a pry bar like this where you can't hold on to the handle because it's too big. So this one here, you can reach all the way around and you can get tons of leverage with this. Now this is 58 inches long, and this is actually slightly larger than 3/4 of an inch. Now this is bigger, this is thicker than my 36-inch pry bar, and I've used this multiple times now. And this pry bar here, it provides so much leverage. If I had known that this was going to make things so much easier, I would have got one of these a long time ago. So, 2 tools you want to have in your arsenal if you don't have it is this 58-inch pry bar, the Mayhew Tools Dominator. I definitely recommend this pry bar. I love this guy. If I have to do steering and suspension, these 2 guys are coming out. Now the other good thing about this is, so this hole has to fit the pry bar. So now you can't, now because the Dominator is so big, because a 58-inch pry bar is gonna be a lot thicker, but you wanna be able to use it with this. So I was actually able to get a good angle on it where I could, see that? I was able to still use it even though it doesn't rotate in here like my smaller pry bars. And I mean, you don't want it to, because that means that this would have to be smaller and thinner, the hole would have to be bigger, your other pry bars wouldn't work, or your big pry bar would have to be too small. So you don't want that. So 58-inch Dominator pry bar, number 1. OTC control arm S-hook, number 2. Make sure you have a good air hammer. Not Harbor Freight. Well, I mean, I guess if you got to do what you got to do, but get a good quality air hammer. You're good, because this is a tool that you need it to be hitting. You need it to be delivering blows, and a weak air hammer is not going to deliver the blows that you want. It might sound like it is. It might be going the repetition, but it's not providing the power. It would be like a small person hitting something with a hammer versus me hitting with a hammer. I'm going to hit it a lot harder. Now imagine every single hit being harder. That's why you don't want to buy a cheap one, because you can buy a cheap air hammer and get this guy right here, and you can hammer all day and nothing's going to happen because it's not providing any power. The next thing is, try to find yourself a big thick piece of steel. I had this for a long time. And then of course, you're going to want to make sure that you have a good hammer. A sledgehammer is, a smaller sledgehammer is good because you can hold it like a hammer. I can get 2 hands on this and provide even more leverage, but you don't want it too big to where you can't swing it. If you can't swing it, you can't provide any power. So that is my recommendations for steering and suspension. Definitely get these tools. I will put a link in the description down below for these tools. And I want to say thank you for watching this video. Thank you for visiting my channel. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you hit the bell, you get notified of all my future content, which you're definitely going to want to see. And check me out on Instagram at Nuts and Bolts with Tone for my daily life as a mechanic. Show you tools all the time, good tools, bad tools, good things to work on, crappy things to work on, good jobs, diesels, gas, you name it. So, thank you, and I'll see you next time.